Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our regular Thursday lecture. I hope your day is going well. My name is Victoria. I'm the outreach coordinator for the Education USA network here in Ukraine. You may have already heard of us, but for those of you who haven't, we're the official source on US higher education, offering accurate, comprehensive, and unbiased information about opportunities to study at accredited colleges and universities in the United States. And today we've prepared a very special meeting for you today. We're going to talk about how to prepare for the Duolingo English Test for US admissions. So if you have any questions or comments, please do not hesitate to leave them down below. So you may have already heard of the Duolingo English Test. It is one of the most popular English language tests to take for admission to American colleges or universities. And today we're going to discuss how and when you should start preparing for the test to get the best score possible. Why does the score actually matter? And I'm delighted to welcome our guest speaker, Julie Chapman. She is Senior Strategic Engagement Executive for Duolingo, and Julie is going to speak about the test structure, the evaluation criteria, and share some tips on how you can increase your chances on the exam and what resources are available to international students. Julie, it's a pleasure to have you here with us, and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Victoria. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. As Victoria mentioned, my name's Julie Chapman, and I'm here to share information with you about the Duolingo English Test so we can get that presentation started. Okay. Here we go. Perfect. So, as Victoria mentioned, my name's Julie Chapman. I've been with Duolingo since December of 2022. And prior to that, I worked in U.S. higher education at an institution called Vanderbilt University for about 10 years, where I was overseeing the international selection and recruitment process. So my depth of knowledge for you today comes from that context. It comes from the context of having reviewed international applicants from all over the globe and traveled extensively in the recruitment process to get students to come to Vanderbilt. I've now moved over to work for Duolingo, and I'm thrilled to be able to share my knowledge and expertise with you on the Duolingo English Test and how you can use it to best perform as well as best position yourself for a U.S. application process. So what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Duolingo English Test. We'll talk a little bit about what the process is of actually taking the test, as well as some information about security and proctoring, what that looks like being a digital test, being taken online, and then things that you can do to best prepare yourself for the DET, and then how that process actually works. Don't worry, we are going to leave plenty of time at the end for questions. You can, as Victoria mentioned, you can throw those into the chat, and we are happy to get those answered for you. So what is the Duolingo English Test? For those of you who might not necessarily be as familiar with the test, it's convenient. It is completely done online, anytime, anywhere that is convenient to you. This is the mission of the DET, is to be accessible to students everywhere around the globe. So all you need is a stable internet connection, and you can schedule it at any time that you want to do. The test itself is much quicker than some of the other testing providers at just 1 hour. And then you get your test results in 2 days. I'll talk a little bit more about that process in just a minute. But additional to that, it's an affordable test. We recognize that there are a lot of financial burdens that are placed on students as they go through the application process. So we do our best to keep our price at a fraction of what the other test providers are costing. And then our test is built on a significant amount of research to help you as a student demonstrate your English fluency such that it can be trusted by our institutional partners to use in their high stakes admissions process. And we currently are being accepted by over 4,200 programs around the globe, and that number is growing almost every single day. So what does that testing process look like? As I mentioned, the test itself takes just about an hour to do. We guarantee that once you've submitted and completed your exam, that you can get those test results back to you in 48 hours. There is an option that if you need it to be expedited, you can pay to have that expedited for you. And then you can share it with as many institutions as you want. There's not a certain number that you have, and then you can pay for more. You can share it with as many institutions as you'd like at any point during that process. And then it's available at any point for institutions to review and to use in your admissions process. So this whole idea and concept around the Duolingo English test is a little bit different than the traditional testing experience that you might be familiar with. So with the traditional testing experience, you find out that you need to take an English test for your application. You then have to go online and you have to select a date where there is an open sitting of the test that is available to you. Sometimes you have to do that months in advance, depending on the availability of the test and the testing centers that have seats for you to do. And then you have to travel to it. That might be in your city. It might be in another city. It might even be in another country that you have to go take that test. Adding to the costs of the actual exam and what you have to pay in order to take it above and beyond just the fee for the test. You have these travel expenses that have now been added on. And then the other testing providers can take upwards of 3 hours, which is a significant amount of time for you to demonstrate your English fluency. So we've completely re-envisioned what that actually looks like for the Duolingo English test. So for us, you find out that you need to take an English test. You can take that test at any point. You can decide that day that you're ready to take the test. It could be another couple of days if you want some time to prepare, but you can take that test at any day that you'd like, at any time that you like. Maybe you are better with your English proficiency a little bit earlier in the morning and you want to take it then. Maybe you're better as you go throughout the day, having spoken English throughout the day. It's really up to you as to when you feel like you will test your best, but you can take it at any time that you want. And you don't have to travel anywhere to do that. Anywhere that you are able to find a stable internet connection that will last for about an hour, you can take that test. So if you have that in the comfort of your home, you can take the test in your home. Maybe you have to go to the EducationUSA center or a library or a school in order to to find that stable internet connection, but you don't have to travel anywhere else outside of your city in order to take the Duolingo English test. And then, as I mentioned, our test is done in just about an hour. We have what's called computer adaptive testing. And so what that means is that the test questions adjust to your level of fluency, which allows us to pinpoint much faster your fluency within the test. The questions and how you answer them will dictate what questions you get a little bit later on, and that will help us really pinpoint, as I mentioned, your score on the Duolingo English test. So what does it look like when you actually sit down to take the test? You have a quick setup, and I'll talk a little bit about what will be included in that setup and how to best prepare your space for the Duolingo English test. And then you have about 45 minutes of actual questions and the actual exam that you will be taking. And then you will have a 10-minute writing and speaking sample that you will produce at the end of the test. And then you are able to go about your day. So relatively quick as you think about it in terms of what that process looks like. And we have gone through and we have done a significant amount of research so that when you receive your score from the Duolingo English test, you can know what it would be equivalent to if you had taken the TOEFL or the IELTS. This is called concordance, that our scores are aligned with the TOEFL or the IELTS. We've shared this information with university admissions offices so that they know what it means when they get a score on the DET, how it associates with the other tests or what they can expect in terms of your level of fluency. So we have taken that and we have provided it to both you, the student, as well as admissions officers and university stakeholders so that they can feel confident in the score that they are receiving from the Duolingo English test. And we provide both you as well as the institutions with a test taker certificate. This is a certificate that provides you with all of the information you need to know about your Duolingo English test, the overall score, as well as the sub-scores, and as well as a unique, secure link that verifies that the certificate is valid from the Duolingo English Test. This is so that you, as well as the institutions, know that this is good, valid information. It is secure. It is the test that you took as a student for the Duolingo English Test and can be included in the application for admission. And all of this that I've just mentioned has allowed for us to gain a significant amount of trust and association with institutions around the world. As I mentioned, we have over 4,200 programs currently worldwide that are accepting the DET. And as I mentioned as well, that number is growing on a regular basis so that we know that, that institutions are accepting it. And within the United States alone, the top 25 institutions hosting international students do accept the DET and use it in their high stakes admissions process. So we are very proud of this. We are proud that we are able to provide this amount of access for students, and that institutions around the globe are trusting the DET in their admissions process. So I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit more about our security and our proctoring. So this, as I mentioned, it's an online test. But how do we ensure that you are able to perform and that the test that we are providing to institutions is secure, that there isn't an opportunity for cheating, that there are ways that we are able to ensure that the test taker is who they say they are in the process. So why is this important? For you as a test taker, you want to be able to demonstrate your level of English fluency. You want to be able to demonstrate what you can do so that admissions officers can see that in your application and then use that as they review your application for admission. So you want to make sure that your test is secure. You want to make sure that there are security measures in place that allow you to be who you are, as well as to perform your best on the test. And then institutions in return are wanting to make sure that the scores that they receive are valid, that they are the level of proficiency for the student, and that they can know that when they admit that student to the institution, that they're going to be able to perform. And ultimately, that's to you, the benefit of you as a test taker. We want to set you up for success as a student. We want to make sure that the level of English that you have is going to be what is necessary in order to succeed on that institution's campus. And then that all helps us to continue to grow worldwide, that we have a secure test that institutions can use, that students can take, and that's going to continue to provide that opportunity and access for students all over the globe. So how do we do this? How do we ensure that the test that you are taking stays secure and that you as a student are able to perform your best on the test? There's a number of different features that we take into account and that we use in our testing process. I'm not going to dig into every single one of them, but this could go from just the simple design of the test to the fact that we have remote proctoring that is going through and looking through your test, that we have ID verifications, that we lock down your screen so that you can't use any other features on your computer. All of this is used in the process in order to secure your test and ensure that the information that you are sharing, the information that you are providing on the test is accurate and valid. Furthermore, I mentioned that we have proctoring that's going on asynchronously. And what this means is that you take the test and there's nobody sitting with you except for you. You're just sitting there on your computer, you're taking your test. And then what happens is that after the fact, after you've taken your test, we sit down and we have a combination of artificial intelligence as well as human proctors that go through and review every exam that a student has taken. That combination is crucial to ensure that students and that the students and institutions can trust the information that we're receiving, that we know that we have gone through and we have provided all of the different factors that are looked at in the proctoring process to ensure that a test is valid. This is important to you as a student because it means that you are reviewed, your test is proctored one-on-one. It's not you sitting in a room with one proctor and several other students, but we know that your test is being looked at by, as I mentioned, a combination of artificial intelligence as well as human proctors to verify and certify that your exam results are what they say they are. So how do you set up your space to ensure that you are able to get through the security and proctoring and be able to test your best in the process? We have a number of different recommendations, and a lot of this information can be found on our website. So if you don't take notes today, that is perfectly fine. We can reference this on the website so that you have the opportunity to test your best. So what is the first step that you want to do? You want to make sure that you have everything ready that is necessary in order to have a smooth testing experience. As I mentioned, this is all going to be done from a computer with a secure internet connection. You're going to want to have a speaker where you're able to hear things. You're going to want to have a secure microphone so that you can speak and be in a well-lit environment that allows for you to perform your best on that test. So what are we looking for you to use, and what are some things that you might not be able to use? So yes, you need to have your computer. You need to have that microphone. You can have one keyboard and one mouse, and then you need your ID as well. A couple of things that you can't use. Unfortunately, headphones are not allowed. And so we need to be able to see your ears and see that you have nothing in your ears. You aren't able to have a second monitor or your cell phone available, and there's no note taking that's allowed on the test. All of this is to ensure that you're able to focus in and really commit and demonstrate your level of English fluency on the Duolingo English Test. So how does that all play, that setup all play into the rules and requirements of the test? So we're going to talk through this process a little bit more. So one of the things that you are required to do as you're taking the Duolingo English Test is to focus on your screen. Okay. Now you'll notice as I'm giving this information, I am focused directly on you on the screen. I'm paying attention to the information that's happening here. I'm not distracted and looking around my room or anything like that. Again, the goal here is to ensure that you are performing yourself and you're demonstrating your level of English fluency. And so we need you to make sure that you're focused on the screen and that you're going through and following through on the exam without any distractions. Now, it is very natural as you're going through to kind of look around or think, and you're moving your eyes a little bit and wondering and looking around and all of that. That is a very natural human movement. So if you're concerned about your ability to maintain eye contact with your computer and to stay focused, practice. Use the practice tests, and I'll talk a little bit about those opportunities and what is available for you to do a little bit later on in the presentation. You need to close all of the other programs that are open on your computer. Okay, everything needs to be shut down. The only thing that can be running is your test session. Okay, now I can tell you that on my computer, I have a lot of different tabs. I have different web browsers. I have different applications open. And then there are some things that I don't even realize are running in the background of my computer. So you need to make sure and double check that everything has been shut down and that is just the test sitting that is available on your desktop. This will ensure that there's no no flags that are popping up on the back end or things that are running without your knowledge. You need to make sure that everything is shut down. Now, the best way to do that is to just restart your computer, shut it down, restart it, and just open up that test sitting. That'll ensure that you have no other applications running or anything that can be flagged in the proctoring process. And then you need to make sure that you're sitting in a private environment. Again, the Duolingo English Test is about your level of English fluency. And so we want to make sure that you are by yourself, that you're sitting in a private environment during that 1 hour of the test. And so one of the best things that you can do is simply communicate with the people around you, whether that's a family or a friend or other people that might be in your community who might be using or sharing that space with you. You want to make sure that they all know that you need to be left undisturbed for a full hour. Okay. And so that includes somebody that might come in through the back door. That includes anyone that might say something to you during the test. You want to make sure that you have communicated that you need to be isolated for that 1 hour of the test. This ensures that you aren't, again, going to have any issues with the proctoring process within your test, that everything is able to move smoothly and you are able to move through that Duolingo English Test for the hour that it will take. And then you get to sit down and you get to take that test. And you're just going to speak and write as naturally as you can. We're going to talk through some test readiness and things that you can do in order to prepare. But one of the best ways to go through and do the Duolingo English test is to really just rely on your natural English proficiency. What you know how to say, how you know how to say it, how you read, how you write, how you speak. All of that is going to be what you want to demonstrate on this test. The natural inclination is that you want to do your best, right? You want to be able to get the highest score possible, but you want to get the highest score possible that relates to your natural level of English fluency. And so while this might seem very obvious to speak and write naturally, it's something that can actually be quite difficult for students because you get very stressed. And when you get stressed, things get a little bit harder to do. And so I always recommend going through and just practicing your English with friends, practicing your English by reading, practicing your English by writing. All of that will help you improve and help you feel more confident when you sit down to take your Duolingo English test. So a couple of other things that you want to make sure that you have prepared and that are ready for you to go when you're doing your sitting of the Duolingo English test. You need to make sure that the ID that you have is accurate to your name and doesn't have another person's name on it. Or that you sign up with another person's name. You need it to be your legal name. And there are a couple of reasons for this. One, this allows us to go through and do your ID check, but also it allows for when you are submitting your test to an institution that they are able to identify it with your name and with your information so that they can put it into your application for admission. If there's different names or different versions of a name, it can be a little bit inconsistent and make it a little bit more difficult for institutions to identify your test. And so you want to make sure that all of that information is accurate so that it can flow direct into your application for admission. Your face needs to be visible this entire time. So again, using this presentation as an example, I've been front and center to you, focused on you and right in the center of my screen for you to see. That's going to be how you want to appear in the Duolingo English test to the best of your ability so that we are able to proctor it without any issues. And as I mentioned, your ears need to be visible. There need to not be any headphones in your ears, other than if you have a religious head covering you are wearing at that time. But we want to make sure that we're able to see your ears and understand that you don't have any headphones that are being used. And then you don't want to have, as I mentioned, you don't want to have any external programs running, such as a predictive text method. You don't want to have those running. So you want to make sure that those have been turned off and aren't coming up as something that's being run or used in your test setting. And then you want to make sure that you keep your camera and microphone on so that the test is able to move forward smoothly. That camera needs to be on you the whole time. And then your microphone needs to be on so that we can hear your speaking for the speaking portions of the test. And then, as I mentioned, we want to make sure that the test is the only thing that you have open on your computer so that you can go through and you're not trying to click out of your test session, that you're able to focus and just worry about what's happening on your test. But navigating away from that test can cause some issues in the scoring and the proctoring of the exam. So it's a lot of information to take in about the security, about the process, about the proctoring, about the different rules and things to follow as you're setting up. But all of this information is going to help ensure that you as a student are able to perform your best on the test, that you're able to not have to worry so much about the rules and regulations, but can really focus on your English fluency. So that's why we share this with you in advance, so that as you go through and you prepare to take the Duolingo English test, you know all of this so that you can be prepared for it. And again, just focus on providing your level of English fluency as you're taking the test. So let's talk a little bit about ways that you can prepare outside of the security and proctoring, outside of setting up your test space. How can you actually prepare for the test? What is the best way for you to ensure that you are ready and going to test your best? So we put out a lot of resources for you. We know that our test is a little bit different in terms of how the questions are asked and how you're expected to perform. And so we want to make sure that you have opportunities to engage and become a little bit more familiar familiar with the test questions. Now, rest assured, these questions aren't going to be the same ones that you see on the test. We have a significant item bank that allows for us to have opportunities for you to see and test out some of the questions without knowing, and being assured that you're not going to see those same tests same questions on the test. We're going to give you a bunch of opportunities to experience the different types of questions. We have videos that you can take to walk through what the test actually looks like. And then you, again, have the opportunity to review a lot of the rules and regulations that I talked through in the previous part of the presentation. Now, I mentioned that you can take a free practice test. This is available on our website. You can go to that link that's right there and go on and you can try this practice test. It takes just about 15 minutes of your time, but it's a great way for you to start to understand and experience what the Duolingo English test is like. It allows you to get some sense of what those questions might be, get a sense of what it's like to really focus on your computer. As I mentioned, the practice test is a great way for you to learn and have an opportunity to feel what it's like to have to focus so closely onto your computer itself without looking away or trying to glance off screen or something along those lines. So definitely recommend that you take this practice test. Again, it's a great way to just gain a little bit of familiarity so that when you see questions on the test, you're not caught off guard, that you know what the expectation is and you know what you're supposed to do in that part of the test. You can also check out our test taker guide. This is a significant resource. It's a long resource, but it goes through and gives you a lot of really great information so that you know what to expect, you know how to prepare, you know what's available for you as a student so that you can do your best on the test. Again, you can navigate to that link that's right there, and it will provide you with all of the information that you need in order to do your best on the test. And then I always recommend heading over to our YouTube channel. There are so many incredible videos that are on the YouTube channel that walk you through different parts of the test, help explain a little bit about some of the item types, give some recommendations on the best way to prepare for the test. I can't stress this enough. Go to the YouTube channel, follow along, subscribe so that you have all of this information. There is a wealth of opportunity to learn about the DET as well as about the items that you'll find on the test. It gives you up-to-date information about other ways that you can engage with the Duolingo English test, opportunities to watch webinars that we've hosted with information on the application process. So there's a lot of great resources that are out there for you directly on our YouTube channel. And then I always recommend checking out the frequently asked questions. If you have a question, the likelihood is that somebody else has also had that similar question. And so if you head over to the FAQs, you can find a lot of those answers to the questions that you might have. And if there's a question that you have that isn't answered on there, you can certainly log into your student portal and chat with one of our representatives who are live humans who are there to answer the questions that you have. So definitely head over to our website and take an opportunity to learn about those frequently asked questions. Now, the next piece I want to talk about is a change that happened just 10 days ago, actually. We released a brand new item to the test called interactive listening. This is, in my opinion, a very, very cool item type that is unique to Duolingo. As I mentioned, it is brand new, but it really allows you as a student to show how you would engage in a conversation with someone. The actual question uses a combination of AI as well as our item bank to simulate what it might be like to have a conversation with a faculty member. Let's say you were going to office hours, or with one of your peers and just having a conversation about information that might have been covered in class or something along those lines. But it's a really neat way to actually take your English fluency and put it into practice in a simulated conversation. The reason I really like this question is because in most testing environments, you don't get that opportunity. You don't have the opportunity to simulate a conversation. And in this piece of the Duolingo English test you do. And you get to demonstrate how you would engage in that conversation. And then at the end of that conversation, you'll be asked to summarize it. So I'm really excited about this. Again, you can go online and you can learn a little bit more about what this item is like. But it's a really cool way for that Duolingo is using that combination of artificial intelligence and our genuine items as well. So just very, very exciting. Again, super innovative and brand new. We just, as I mentioned, released on May 1st. So I'm really excited about that. And then another item that I do like to mention, just so that you are prepared, is our writing and speaking samples. This is something that has been on the test for a while, but I do like to highlight it because it is different than many of the other testing providers in that your writing and your speaking samples are sent to the universities with your test score. And so this is information that can be included in your application. So an institution can see your genuine writing that you do in the Duolingo English test. They can also hear your speaking sample. So if they're looking at your score, they can see and hear you speaking with your application, which is something as an admissions officer and somebody who reviewed thousands of applications every year was always helpful for me in terms of understanding a student's level of fluency. Being able to hear you actually speak and being able to see your authentic writing that hasn't been proofed or anything along those lines, that was always very helpful to confirm the other factors that I was seeing in your application for admission. So with all of this in mind, what are the next steps for you? You know, you have gone through and we've talked a little bit about the institutions that accept the test. We've talked about the test process. We've talked a little bit about the security of the test and why that's important. We have also talked about how you best prepare for the test from a technological standpoint, ensuring that your space is set up, as well as a practical standpoint in terms of test readiness and how to best prepare for the test. So what's next for you as a student? The first thing that you need to do, again, going back to this idea of the Duolingo testing, you find out that you need to take an English exam. You can go online, again, at any time that you want to and at anywhere you want to that you have a secure internet connection, and you can sign up to take the Duolingo English test. So once you've done that, you can then try that practice test. Again, this is a great resource that's out there to help you gain comfort and familiarity with the test and test items, things that you'll actually be experiencing when you take the Duolingo English test. And then you can go on and you can purchase a test. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about purchasing tests a little bit later, but there are two options that you have: one test for $59 or two for $49 each. Again, this is a fraction of the cost of what other tests cost to take. We want to make sure that our test is not a barrier for students in the application process, because there are a lot of fees that start to add up as you're going through and applying to institutions in the United States. And then when you're ready, you can go on and you can take that test. Again, it takes just 60 minutes of your time, 1 hour. You need to be in that private space so that you don't have any interruptions. And you need to take the test all in one sitting. You can't start the test and then restart it at a different time. You need to be in that 60 minutes straight without stopping. And then once you get your results, you can then go on and you can share them automatically through your student portal. I mentioned that you get that certificate that comes with your unique link, but directly in your student portal, you have the opportunity to share it to as many institutions as you like. And know that for many institutions, they get it directly in their application systems. Many of them set it up so that it flows directly from our system to theirs. If not, they have the ability to come on and download your scores directly from our system as well. But we want to make it as secure and easy as possible. There's not a lot of lag time in terms of what it takes from you sharing your results to the institution receiving them. They get it almost instantaneously as soon as you share your results. They just need to go into their dashboard to find them and then download them into their system if it doesn't do that automatically. And then your results are there. Institutions can use them. Now, I mentioned that that the financial aspect in terms of purchasing a test can be a barrier for a lot of students, that even the $59 being a fraction of the cost of other testing providers, it still can be a burden for many students. And so Duolingo, the company, was started with access in mind. The Duolingo language app was started to provide access for language learning to anyone around the world who wanted it for free. The Duolingo English Test was started with that same idea of access in mind, that we wanted to ensure that anyone applying to a college or university program, or anyone that needed a language test for government visa purposes, had the opportunity to take a test and not have it be a barrier for them in terms of going to another country or another state or city in order to take the test. That also goes through to the cost of the test. We want to make sure that $59 isn't going to be a burden. And so if it is a burden for you, we have an access program that allows for institutions to provide students with codes that they can take the test for free. We never want finances to be a barrier for you seeking higher education, and having that barrier of an English test be a reason that you're not able to do that. And so we partner with institutions, we partner with EducationUSA to provide these codes and ensure that anyone can take the test free of charge if it is a financial burden for you or for your family. This has led to us giving out over 10,000 codes in a calendar year to students in over 200 different countries. And again, providing you with that opportunity to take the test for free. So that mission is something that is important to us. It is important to our team at the Duolingo English Test to ensure that everyone can take the test who needs to. So with that, I have thrown a lot of information at you. I haven't seen any questions come through in the chat, but I'm sure you do have some. So I'd welcome the opportunity for you to put any questions that you have in the chat here to allow us to answer those. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for taking the time to join. I hope the information has been helpful for you as you think about your English proficiency exams moving forward. And I'll look forward to any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Julie, for such an enjoyable presentation. It was really helpful, and thank you for sharing your insights into the exam. I think a lot of our students can really benefit from it. And just to reiterate, I would like to encourage all of our listeners here today to put their questions in the chat box. And while we wait for questions, I actually have one of my own, if you don't mind. And my question pertains to the speaking part. So I was wondering, are there any resources or maybe particular practice questions that you would recommend students go over before taking the actual test?
Yeah, so for the speaking portion, again, that practice test is going to be a great way for you to actually practice the different items that are on the test. But for the speaking portion directly, I always recommend engaging with those who speak English in your community. That's going to be the best way to prepare. And I know it sounds abstract. I know it sounds like, okay, but I already kind of do that. Like, what are some ways that I can do it even more? Just really force yourself to engage in those natural conversations. We want to make sure that you have the ability to just, again, demonstrate your English fluency, demonstrate your speaking ability. And so while it does sound abstract, it genuinely is the best way for you to prepare for the test. It is the best way for you to become more comfortable in a speaking environment. And so really forcing yourself. I'll say, as you know, I'm a native English speaker, but I grew up learning French as my second language. And I was always so scared to speak in French. Like, I was like, I know what they're asking me. I know, like, I have the grammar in my head to do it. But the best way that I was able to advance my French was actually just by speaking it, by messing it up and trying again and having somebody correct me. And so take that opportunity that if you have that available to you, if you have either proficient English speakers in your community or native English speakers in your community, to really just push yourself to engage in conversation with them. And if they try to revert back to a different language or something of that nature, like, tell them that you really want to practice your English, because that's going to be the best way that you're able to approach the questions and be able to speak naturally about the things that you're being asked to speak on. And the topics themselves are there's a wide range of topics. So there's not specific questions that you might be asked. but rather you might be given a prompt that you have to speak on, or might be asked to speak about a picture or something along those lines. And so just having that wide range of experiences to talk on a whole lot of different topics is going to be the best way to prepare for that.
Thank you so much for your answers. That's really helpful. And we've actually got a question from Polina. So Polina is wondering, what is the structure of the reading section in the test?
Mm-hmm. So similarly, going to the practice test and engaging with that is going to be the best way to expose you to that. So there are going to be a couple of different ways that your reading is going to be assessed. So on the Duolingo English Test, different from other testing providers, we have integrated subscores. And so what that means is that there's not going to be questions that are just testing your reading skills. In fact, we're going to test your reading skills and something else when we're testing your reading skills. And so there's not a section that's going to be just straight up reading, but you might have to read and reproduce something. So going to the practice test is going to be the best way that you can understand a little bit more about what is going to be expected of you. But we do have passages that are included where you have to identify things within the passages. So head over to that practice test, and that's going to be the best way to understand a little bit more of the structure of the reading section.
Thank you so much for your answer. And we've got another question. So Katerina is asking about the interactive listening task. She's wondering how it would be better to summarize the conversations after.
Yeah, so this is a great question. And as I said, like, I'm super excited about this interactive listening. But the interactive listening goes through and asks several different questions in sequence. Okay, so it's not just one question and then you're responding, but there is a whole conversation that happens. And so it would be very difficult for you to just go through and repeat what has been described in the conversation in terms of like, well, so-and-so said this, and then so-and-so said this, and then this person said this, but rather the overall concept of what that conversation was about. You know, I went to office hours and asked my professor a question about something that was mentioned in class because I wanted to learn about it more in depth, and they recommended me doing this. You know, it will be very apparent to you as a student how to best take the information that you've gained and put it into that summary. Again, because that conversation is going to be more than just one like question and answer. It's a whole conversation that you're going to be engaged in, and that will allow for you to have a better summary, a better overall view of what the question was.
Thank you so much, Julie, for such a helpful answer. And we've got another student, Ruslana. So Ruslana is wondering, what is the best time to take the test in order to start applying to universities in September? So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, anytime you want. You know, that's the beauty of the Duolingo English Test, is that you can take it anytime that you want. And because it doesn't take us, because we're able to review your test in 48 hours, and then you're able to send them right as soon as you receive your results, it doesn't really take as long for you to receive those results and then send them to the institution. So if you have a deadline coming up or something along those lines, you can absolutely take the DET at your convenience. Again, if you are applying in September, now is a great time to go and hit up that readiness guide that I mentioned. As I said, it's quite lengthy, so it would be a nice read for you to go through and do that in advance. So go through and read through that readiness guide, go on and take the practice test a couple of times, and then you can feel confident when you're ready to go on and take that DET that you have the ability to do so. But if you're applying in September, now is a great time for that to happen. Now is a great time for you to start preparing and going through those readiness resources. Head over to our YouTube channel and check out some of those videos. Caroline, who is in many of those videos, is really fun and energetic and has a great passion for the DET. So I highly recommend that you go on and check out some of Caroline's videos there, and because those will be a really great resource for you as you prepare for it.
Thank you so much for your answer, Julie. And Ruslana, if you have already a specific university or college in mind, please do not hesitate to reach out to Education USA Ukraine. We'll be more than happy to help you with preparing your admission documents and your application package, or filling in the application form. So whichever you need, we're here for you, and all of our consultations are, of course, free of charge. So do not hesitate to reach out. And we've got actually another question from Katerina. So Katerina is once again asking about the reading section, and she's wondering if there is a task to highlight the correct answers from the text, should she only highlight keywords or the whole sentence, and does it make a difference?
Yeah, so this is a great question. And the best recommendation I can have is to highlight what makes sense, if that makes sense. There are going to be different circumstances with regards to the reading section as to what it's being asked to do and how you're being asked to respond to that. So I always recommend really reading the directions and understanding what the question is asking, so that you can highlight the things that are appropriate. So do what makes the most sense in this regard. I know that's not a firm answer for you, but do what makes most sense and what is going to be most accurate to the answer for the task that's being asked at hand.
Thank you so much for your answer, Julie. And I've actually got one more question of my own, and it's rather general, but if you could just give one piece of advice to prepare for the Duolingo English test, what would it be?
Yeah. So, there are all of these practice opportunities that are out there. There's all of these rules that you have to engage in to make sure that you do all of the things that are necessary to receive a valid and certified result. I mentioned a lot of different pieces today, and that's a lot of information to keep in mind as you're setting up for the test, as you're actually taking the test. And so to the question that was asked about when is the best time to take the test if you're applying in September, being comfortable and familiar with all of these pieces is going to help you be more relaxed during your actual sitting of the Duolingo English test. Okay, so if you're applying for undergraduate admission and you're starting to think about it now, that's amazing, because it gives you time to gain a level of comfort with what the expectations are going to be as you're taking the test, so that when you sit down to actually take it, you're not stressed out about, am I looking at the camera, or did I close down all of the other things on my computer, or, oh no, am I off screen a little bit, or something along those lines. And you have a level of comfort, you have a level of understanding of what the expectations are, so that when you're sitting down and you are actually taking the test, you can focus on providing your best English fluency. You're not distracted by the fact that you need to look at the screen. You're not distracted by the fact that your ears have to be visible. You can focus on your actual demonstration of your ability. Because if you're sitting here today and you're listening to this presentation and you're considering applying to colleges or universities, you have a great level of English fluency to do well. Okay, I don't speak slow. I speak very fast, and I speak with a lot of different just terms that are normal for American English. And if you're able to follow along and understand the presentation that I'm giving, you're going to do great. You have a great level of English fluency, and you just need to make sure you're able to demonstrate that in the test. And the great news is that our test is designed with you as the students in mind. Okay, we want to make sure that you are able to test your best and that you're able to perform on these tests, so that institutions know the level of English fluency that you're coming in with. Okay, and so, long story, very, very long, a long way of explaining this answer, but become comfortable with all of the other things that are necessary in order to get through the Duolingo English test, so that you can focus on your level of English fluency, so that you can focus on demonstrating what you know in English and not be worried about all of the other factors that need to be taken into account. So start getting comfortable with that now, so that you can do well on the test.
Thank you so much for such an in-depth answer. It was really helpful, and I feel like a lot of our students are much more confident right now before taking the test and when starting their preparations. And just on my behalf and on behalf of our team, I would like to thank you for sharing your knowledge, sharing your expertise, and helping Ukrainian students become more proficient, become more confident once again in their abilities. and taking one step closer to their dream of making it to a US university or college and realizing their dream. So thank you, all of you, our participants, our listeners here today. We really appreciate you reaching out to us. And if by any chance you haven't been able to join the live, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to provide you with the information and resources you need on your journey. So once again, I wish you all a wonderful evening. I wish you the best of luck on the exam, and I know you're going to do great. Thank you so much, Julie, for being with us today. I do hope we can collaborate in the future. And yes, I wish all of you a great evening. Stay safe and stay with Education USA.